For the US's closest ally in Asia, Ishiba Shigeru's trip to Washington was high stakes. Tokyo not only sought Donald Trump's commitment to the US-Japan security alliance, it also hoped Trump wouldn't weaken the Japanese economy through tariffs amid escalating military threats in a volatile region. Fundamental to success would be Ishiba's ability to forge a personal relationship with the US president. So, should America's most strategic Asian treaty ally be reassured?
And I'm pleased to say that this week my administration approved nearly $1 billion in foreign military sales to Tokyo. The United States is totally committed to the security of Japan. We will extend the full strength of American deterrence capabilities in defense of our friend and ally.
Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Ian Kavat. Joining us today are Lai I-chung, Prospect Foundation President, and Yuan I, National Chengchi University Institute of International Relations Adjunct Research Fellow. Both a very warm welcome to you today on the show. On February 7th, Ishiba made a 24-hour whirlwind tour of Washington, D.C. He held a 30-minute summit with U.S. President Donald Trump at the White House, followed by a press conference and an 80-minute luncheon. Their joint statement said, quote, they affirmed their determination to pursue a new golden age for U.S.-Japan relations that upholds a free and open Indo-Pacific and brings peace and prosperity to a violent and disorderly world. Here's Ishiba.
今後も大統領閣下と私、そして合衆国と日本国、力を合わせて、さらに世界が平和になるように、そしてさらに人々が夢と希望を持って生きていくことができるように努めてまいりたいと存じます。
In their statement, the two leaders highlighted China's military threats directed at Japan, the Philippines, and last but not least, Taiwan. They also agreed to strengthen the US-Japan alliance. On Taiwan, the statement said they also emphasized the importance of maintaining peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait as an indispensable element of security and prosperity for the international community. They encouraged the peaceful resolution of cross-strait issues and opposed any attempts to unilaterally change the status quo by force or coercion. The two leaders also expressed support for Taiwan's meaningful participation in international organizations. President Lai, let me come to you first. So would Ishiba have left the United States reassured? To what extent?
I believe that this trip of Ishiba to the United States is a very successful one, especially in both Japan and also to the United States. Of course, people in Taiwan basically will look at the Taiwan segments. But I think if you look at the wider sense, that the host alliances and the security system in the Indo-Pacific, that basically Trump sort of reassure the continuation of the Biden policy, especially at the end of the joint statement. Both of them also mentioned about the importance of the US-Japan ROK, US-Japan Philippines, US-Japan Australia, and the Quad. Those are the elements and ingredients of the Biden administration, his latest work security system in the Indo-Pacific. And when Trump came in, a lot of people suspect that whether Trump will honor or will continue whatever Biden has left behind. But it seems that at least this time, in the joint statement by both Japan and the United States, that Trump came out on board, believing that those are important and reassured the continuation of those systems. I think that's really an outstanding accomplishment by Ishiba himself. Of course, in the US-Japan alliances, both leaders also reaffirmed the importance as well as the US-Japan security alliances will cover the Senkaku Islands. Both of them, they have been said in numerous times in the past. But when Trump came in, a lot of people suspect that whether Trump would really like to commit the U.S. security and commitment to Japan to cover those tiny rocks. But apparently, Trump continued that honor. So I would say that this is another milestone that it gave people the sense of the reassurance.
So, Professor Yuan, and let's talk about the insertion of the word coercion into the statement, because usually we have, unilateral change by force, but not the inclusion of coercion itself. What do you read into that?
I think that if we were to elevate it on the ladder of abstraction, the very, very meaning for whatever adjective, all right, coercive, violent, non-peaceful, are rather tailored to the very concept of compellence. That is directly opposite to the deterrence. So I think whatever coercion reflects suggests there is a very, very discernible compelling force driven by China onto the various actors in this Indo-Pacific areas. So this is a very general delineations about the compelling elements.
And President Lai, what did you read into that in terms of maybe a slight difference between Trump 2.0 and the Biden administration with the inclusion of coercion?
I think the coercion word that in the U.S.-Japan summit statement, that probably will be the first time about Taiwan. So that there's definitely some meaning about it. And not just from the general analysts, but also from the reliable source within the U.S. government. I think Taiwan is reassured that the coercion particularly means that what's happening right now around Taiwan by China, not just about the direct military attack, but also the military harassment against Taiwan, which a lot of people term it as the gray zone operation against Taiwan. In the past, during especially from year 2023 and year 2024, in both the U.S.-Japan security and the summit statement, the coercion never been mentioned. So this time it has been inserted into this language. Apparently means that the U.S.-Japan would like to tend to this development about the gray zone operation by China on Taiwan. So there's apparently this first connotates to these very important security implications. But then if you look at in the wider sense about the coercion language, whether that has been inserted for the first time or not, no, that is not. Because the coercion language first came out, if my memory wasn't wrong, is that it first came out in the Australia and the France joint statement. At that time, regarding Taiwan, they put out the coercion. And then in various of the Australia statement with the United States,
so
another
your point
one.
is that has been used before, it's nothing new.
Yeah, it wasn't new, but this is the new one in the U.S.-Japan context.
Okay. The two leaders also said they would strengthen energy security by increasing exports of U.S. liquefied natural gas to Japan. Japan is the world's biggest importer of LNG by far, and the U.S. is the world's biggest exporter. Washington has been keen to involve Japan in the long-delayed development of Arctic gas in the U.S. state of Alaska. Under the $44 billion Alaska LNG project, a 1,300-kilometer-long pipeline will be built across Alaska to export gas to Asia from the Pacific coast. The project aims to start delivering natural gas in 2030, with LNG exports commencing shortly after. Analysts say it's a 7 to 8 day journey time from Anchorage to Tokyo in uncontested waters in the North Pacific. Let's take a look at Japan's 2024 LNG imports. Australia, Malaysia and the United States were the biggest suppliers to Japan, delivering 25.1 million tonnes, 10.2 and 6.3 million tonnes respectively, according to Reuters. Supplies from the US rose by 15%, while shipments from Russia were down 7% to 5.7 million tonnes. Supplies from China also declined by nearly 49% to 123,000 tonnes, data showed. So back in July 2023, neither Japan nor South Korea were interested in this Alaskan pipeline, citing basically the extended timeline, talking about 2020, 2030, 2031. So what's changed now, do you think?
I think this is a very belated gesture from the Washington, D.C. Well, thanks to, in particular, with the President Donald Trump. I think he's the one who insists upon that utilized American homegrown, resources to export.
So just the threat of tariffs, essentially.
Well, probably not. I think this is something new for the potential consumer. Never has before the U.S. offered such options. All right, so the probably Asians, in particular Japan, South Korea, were not ready for it. Simply, they are not familiar with that line, the pace of this drastic change. So they respond in accordance with the fast changing. Ever since Donald Trump became the president for his second term, so they became more serious, to tailor to whatever offered by Donald Trump.
And President Lai, so we can understand, for the US, the Alaska LNG project, they want to sell, export more LNG. On the Japanese side, why does it meet their needs?
I think this time that Japan realized that there are danger and risk associated with the LNG coming from Middle East as well as come from Indonesia, because the route to transport the LNG to Japan either had to go through the Strait of Hormuz, which basically is under the risk of the Iran control, and also the South China Sea, where China has already put up a lot of military installations. So that makes a strategic sense to Japan as well.
Yeah.
But in the past, that the Alaska's LNG, there are a lot of investment need to be done in order to dig them out. So I think earlier when Japan and Korea, they are not interested, not only because Biden himself is not very much into the petrochemical energy, but
because of the environmental damage.
Exactly. And also in Alaska, to dig out those LNG, you need to build everything from scratch. Not only the things to dig them out, but also the transport tube as well. So this time when Trump come in, apparently Trump is more committed in those petrochemical energy in the United States. And also Japan make the significant investment as part of the so-called $1 trillion investment deal to the United States. So that will be included, I think, in the LNG, the sources coming from Alaska.
Sure. Professor Yuan, and why is this important, this project in particular, for the US's competition with Russia?
For obvious reasons. But let me reiterate again, never has before the U.S. contemplating such idea. So this is a fresh idea. Well, given the nature of this souring U.S.-Russia relation, therefore, what this is, especially with the Donald Trump's input, so make such alternative more viable. Okay, so that's once it is on the market, that will offer the consumer have more choice. It's been already stipulated many times by many commentators that this is, this is a very fresh idea. I think it makes sense, and simply to demonstrate it, that security consideration, including the natural resources, natural gas, should be taken into account.
I think the idea, though, has been around for a few years at least, isn't it, about Alaska's LNG? And Professor Yuan, Russia is considered the world's overall largest exporter and producer of natural gas. We obviously just said that the US is the world's largest exporter. Russia holds the largest natural gas reserves globally. So what do we know about the US's ambitions in this space?
Well, I think according to the latest information, Donald Trump simply wished to exploit as much as he could about whatever the U.S. owns, the natural resources. Well, in the past, different administration, always put the environmental protection first. But it's about time for, given the waning power of the U.S. hegemony, it's about time for the U.S. to be more assertive about how to exploit its own natural resources for exporting.
Okay. Now, both men also announced that Japan's Nippon Steel, the world's fourth largest steelmaker, would invest in, but not acquire, US Steel, the world's 24th steel producer. US Steel had supported the original takeover proposal, and both companies last month jointly sued Washington after Joe Biden's administration blocked the proposed deal on what they called national security grounds. Ishiba told Trump that Japan has been the biggest investor in the US every year since 2019, with that investment topping $780 billion in 2023. The last full-year figures are available. At the Trump summit, Ishiba went even further, promising that a Nippon investment would be part of an unprecedented $1 trillion investment by Japan in the United States. Take a look.
本日、私から対米投資額を1兆ドルという、いまだかつてない規模まで引き上げたいと、そのために共に取り組みたいということをお伝えをいたしました。関税の問題につきましても、お互いにそれが互いの利益となるような形で、それは設定されるべきものであります。日本国は日本国として、今、大統領閣下から紹介がありましたように、かつてない規模の投資を合衆国に行い、そして多くの雇用を創出するということで、1兆ドルというものを視野に、これから先、さらに拡大をさせていきます。それはアメリカの利益であると同時に、日本国の利益にもなると、そういうことでなければなりません。投資というのはそういうものでございます。ですから、US スチールにいたしましても、今、大統領から言及がありましたように、買収ではない投資なのだと、そのことによって、さらに日本の技術も加えて、良い製品を作り出し、そしてそれが日本、アメリカ、そして世界に貢献できる US スチールの製品が生み出されていることに、日本も投資を行うということで、どちらかが利益を得るというような一方的な関係にならない、そういうことを大統領との間で強く認識を共有したところであります。それが本日の大きな成果であったというふうに私は考えておるところでございます。
President Lai, so you heard there lots of, mutually beneficial, reciprocal. How does the new deal of investment rather than buyout, how does that work for Japan as well as for the US?
Ishiba already promised about the $1 trillion investment, but I think if you look closer at the numbers, Japan right now already have a 700, probably close to 800 billion investment, plus another 200 billion, and then that makes it about the $1 trillion investment in the United States. And we also remember that the SoftBank president, while in his individual trip to the United States, also made a similar 200 billion investment pledge. So if you just add up the 800 billion already that Japan invests there, plus the 200 billion, that makes a trillion investment. Mm-hmm. So I think that it looks good on paper, but Japan really does not have to pay much. So it's a very clever calculation and in terms of the publicity stunt by Japan. But I think that how the Ishiba is able to get around and got the approval by the President Trump is that he really captured how you can make this as big and the one that he can boast himself that he bring the investment into the United States, and that's all he aimed for.
Right, I see. So bringing investment in as opposed to letting foreign countries take over our, household names, that kind of thing. Professor Yuan, Nippon Steel plans to invest $2.7 billion in US steel facilities. It's going to transfer sort of the latest modern cutting-edge technology to US Steel and also share in its R&D budget, $500 million. How does this partnership strategically place both companies to counter any challenge from China in the steel industry?
The U.S. steel industry in the past suffered a great deal with the rise of China. So for this act, the Japanese importers were facilitated to boost the morale, increase employment, to have a overhaul of the infrastructure, to enhance the capacity overall, were demonstrated, will transcend a very, very strong, mutual beneficial.
We know that China's property market has crashed in recent years, and therefore its steel industry, has overcapacity, and this means that it has tended to dump its steel exports onto different markets, including the US market. Do you think that this deal, this partnership between the two, Japan as well as US Steel, can counter China's economic aggression?
I do not think that it has anything to do with a counter the so-called economic aggression, but it really addressed what Trump his priority will be. He wanted to raise a tariff to stop the foreign product enter the United States.
And he has, isn't it, 25% on steel imports?
And he will continue to do that. And he will also invite investment into the United States to build out the U.S. production capacity. So in terms of the Chinese steel, at least he will put up the tariff. And we know that he probably will announce it very shortly, in a short time, about like 25% of steel. But in terms of this Ishiba, he promised about the Nippon Steel investment. That addressed the investment part that Trump really cares about.
Right. The U.S.'s trade deficit with Japan stands at $68 billion in 2024, according to U.S. government data. China, Mexico, and the EU and Vietnam have larger deficits. When Trump was asked whether he would impose tariffs on Japan if the trade imbalance cannot be resolved, he replied yes without hesitation. And yet when Ishiba was asked whether Japan would retaliate, this is how he responded.
I am unable to respond to a theoretical question. That's the official answer that we have.
That's a very good answer. Very good answer. Wow. That's very good. He knows what he's doing.
Ahead of his trip, analysts had advised Ishiba against taking the same approach of former Japanese leader, the late Shinzo Abe, in terms of flattering Trump. They advised him to react more like Mexico and Canada in terms of standing up to Trump. And yet the summit's flattery came from both sides.
For many, many years, I have watched him on television. So it was quite I was so excited to see such a celebrity on television, to see in person. On television, he is frightening, and he has a very strong personality. But when I met with him, actually, he was very sincere and very powerful and with strong will for the United States.
In turn, Trump said of Ishiba, I think he's going to do a fantastic job as Prime Minister, a very strong person. I wish he wasn't so strong. I wish it was a little bit weaker than that, but that's what I got. I have to get strong guys all the time. Professor Yuan, what approach do you believe that Ishiba took in forging this relationship with Trump?
I think the Ishiba was able to avoid falling prey to Trump through flattery, while he succeeds in, overcoming such a potential pitfall. So however, I would mention another factor, which is undeniable. I think he benefits greatly from Abe's legacy. So Donald Trump still thinking about Abe's role. So Abe's legacy still persists. Ishiba was fortunate to take advantage from that.
Right, absolutely. And Trump mentioned several times that Abe actually spoke highly of Ishiba. I don't know whether that was true, but President Lai, do you think that he answered in the right way when he was asked whether he would place tariffs on the U.S. in retaliation?
At least the Ishiba avoid the problems that he has to face at that time. And I think that he also insert a new phrase, and Trump took it. That is a reciprocal tariff. And also, I think that this tariff issue did not brought up by Trump himself directly in the press conference. It is mentioned by Ishiba, and Trump answered when the journalists ask the questions. So to a certain extent, you can say that the tariff is the one that everyone is focusing on this summit and whether Japan will respond to that. But apparently, the tariff issue really did not mention that highly in the discussions. So I think that's another very important technique probably a lot of people would like to learn about how Ishiba get around these issues with Trump.
Professor Yuan, in sort of summing up the trip, President Lai has already said he thinks it was a very, very successful trip. For you, do you think that he provided a different roadmap for allies in how to deal with Trump, that it was different from Abe's?
Well, the general approach would be the lesson learned that is through February, all right.
So that was in common with Abe.
Right. So this is a must-address element. Otherwise, that would, put yourself not in such an awkward position to begin with. Followed by the step-by-step. I think that this summit was from the Japanese side. The bureaucratic preparations, offer very, very comprehensive tackling. If one were to read of the statement, joint and plan of its entirety, you would be amazed by each general level and operational level. It covers all.
The preparation from his advisors.
I would say that Ishiba went to D.C. with some very decent preparation.
Right. And President Lai, final words to you. So at the beginning of the show, we talked about the statement saying that they were ushering in a new golden era of U.S.-Japan relations. Do you believe they can?
And I believe at least that they are able to continue and prevent the worst expectation about the summit. So in that sense, it's already a good success. And also Trump could come out to comment, even praise Japan, which he never did before. That's another very important milestone. So when we compare this with the conversation he had with Canada, for example, with Mexico, and not to mention that he is about to have with China, that's like a night and day. So in terms of the summit results, that definitely is good. I would say that yes, I agree with the Professor Yuan I. Ishiba have spent a lot of time preparing for this summit, and it's a general success, not just about him, but also Japan Foreign Ministry and all the people that devoted, including Trump, his national security councils in this trip.
Let's hope that they can continue to cement their relationship. If you liked our show, please search for us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and hit subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching the show today. Stay safe and see you next time.